Now, Adam Schefter, a reporter for ESPN, was asked about the line in which, where is it drawn with sports and politics? Because, you know, at least we work for the TYT network. Obviously, we have a main show that covers a lot of political news, and obviously they have a political, I don't want to say bias. I want to say that they're in favor of certain sources, candidates, whatever you might want to call it, like every other news program out there. If you turn on CNN, you turn on MSNBC, you turn on any of the major news outlets or digital outlets, of course they're going to favor one side over the other, even though that's not what they technically teach you in school. But regardless of that, they asked Adam Schefter because in sports, it's a little bit different because it's not necessarily our place to discuss with you, our feelings about Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, even though sometimes they do intersect. So they asked Schefter about sports and politics, and this was his answer on whether or not they should cross or not. No, politics is not a normal day-to-day topic of discussion and reporting. It does not impact how we go about our jobs. Sports figures who publicize their political viewpoints only serve to divide the audience. People are drawn to sports as an escape from politics. Even for someone like Andy Katz, who gets President Obama's NCAA picks, Andy should not have to disclose his political views because he's doing the interview. The focus of their interaction is basketball, not politics, as it should be. He continues to say, "They'll also allow me to say that while we're on the topic of reporting and the White House, no president ever has invited me to make his playoff picks up to and through the Super Bowl. If whichever president in his office will have me down to Washington to do the story in January, I'm all in. Democrat, Republican, Independent, or any party." So I guess we got to get to the fact that Adam Schefter doesn't realize that he does tweet out politically intersecting sports stories. Before we get on to the point in general of where he's right in his comment, or where I at least agree with his comment, and where I disagree at times. So, Francis, let's go to the columns. This is just two screenshots from Deadspin, to which they kind of screen grabbed a couple of the tweets. A tweet about a college football player facing academic ineligibility, declaring for the supplemental draft. This is a sham of amateur sports, one of the greatest sources of free labor left in America, propped up by the countless riches flowing from taxpayers to public university system. That is 100% a political tweet. Continues to say. And then one about Tom Brady pending appeal in the Deflategate case, which is potentially a pretty major case in labor litigation. It's not about deflated footballs, but it's about where the limits of power granted by collectively bargained agreements lie when they bump up against legal standards established by the Labor Management Relations Act. These are Schefter's tweets. So Schefter says, no, they shouldn't intersect, but I'm not sure if he's in realization that politics and sports have always intersucked.
I think that as long as money has a major influence in sports, politics will also have a major influence in sports. In an ideal world, we would like to remove them. Right. I completely 100% stand by that great saying as sports is an escape.
Yes, that's what I was
Sports is such an escape. And I love, the reason why I want to cover sports is at times it can be frustrating. At times it can be dark to report when certain instances happen in sports, but the realization is, specifically in the United States of America, is that people are brought up in this country based on political views. People raise their kids conservative or Democrat, whether you think that's the case or not. The majority of them do. The way they play sports is influenced in the way they're brought up, and the way they have opinions is influenced in the way they're brought up. I've never really had a political view when it came to football back in the UK, and a lot of people don't. I had religious views, I would say, passed on to me, which once I started to figure out my own way in sports, I discredited because I didn't think that had any place in sports, and unfortunately it still does in a lot of them.
It does.
But the more that I cover sports and the more that I start to go into detail and research stories, the more you realize that political figures will have an influence on the behind-the-scenes dealings of sports that we try to avoid. FIFA is the most obvious example. The recent Copa America 100 in this country was brought to fruition from dodgy dealings. Dodgy dealings that we don't know the full details behind. Certain people may be facing jail time. I try to stay away from it because that was part of sports that I didn't like talking about because it was dark. It affected the game as a total, but I wasn't belligerent to the fact that it was crossing over.
But there's two specific moments that will always be considered extremely political, and why it will always be sports and politics. It's not that they're separate, they literally intersect. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Jackie Robinson was not the best African-American baseball player they could have chose from at the time what they called the Negro Leagues. Jackie Robinson was chosen to break the color barrier because he was sat down and talked to, and they figured out that he was the one that would be able to withstand the insane amount of racism, name-calling, and deal with and be able to handle fans and interviews appropriately, which again is extremely political. They weren't choosing the best player. They were choosing the one that would be able to make the biggest stand, a political stand. Number 2, Muhammad Ali recently passed away. May him rest in peace. There wasn't one story that had to do solely about his boxing that wasn't had at least half of which written up about his religious beliefs and him being the most recognizable person, not athlete, but in 1999 listed as the most recognizable person on the planet was Muhammad Ali. That's political. That's politics. They're always going to intersect. FIFA, corruption, Rio, the Olympics, my God. Political.
Yeah.
It's always going to be that way. And it's unfortunate, but the one thing that I like to at least clarify is that, and back to the whole point of it at least being an escape is, yeah, sports is an escape. I like coming into work every day. I know Francis does too, because we don't have to discuss on a regular basis the most recent terrorist attack in Turkey, which is devastating, and the stuff that happens, in Paris on a day-to-day basis. It's depressing, and it's important to be discussed, and there's other outlets you can go to on our network. And if you don't believe in our network, you can go elsewhere to find your news. And it's very important that all those things are being discussed, but I'm very happy we get to come in and talk about sports, because 9 out of 10 times the stories are happy.
And of the other times, maybe that 1 out of 10 time where you have to bring up the fact that there's major issues that go on, specifically just sticking to America as well, the major issues that go on. I think that it's needed at times for athletes to use their platform to help potentially inspire change, to inspire good. Like when you see LeBron James and many other players wear I Can't Breathe shirts or Black Lives Matter shirts, like that is,
that's a political statement.
It's a political
and
statement.
It shows that how much they can be a catalyst for change.
Exactly. So I don't agree with Schefter's points that they have to keep maybe their opinions to themselves and that political opinions don't have a place. Of course, I don't want LeBron James going on a rant about Donald Trump every 2 minutes when he's on during the regular season or when the Golden State the games against Golden State are going on. Sometimes you need a voice. Sometimes you need a voice where people don't expect it. Sometimes it's a little different than a Barack Obama addressing a speech when he's already got a large population of the country who don't view him in a positive light. It helps when you've got a LeBron James maybe say something that has to be heard, and then it might hit a more neutral audience, an audience that isn't biased one way or another, and it might hit home. So it's a very tricky topic to have, and I think we deserve some credit on this platform. We do a good job of not involving it too much, but when it does happen and when it does cross over into the sports world, we try to keep an open mind and we try to provide as much detail as possible without skewing one way or another. And I had this conversation with Hassan when we did a Facebook Live on it. It's all part of the machine that is the American news distribution system. You're taught in school from a journalistic point of view that you're supposed to figure out all the details and be open and objective. It doesn't happen. Your news is delivered one way or another. It's delivered based on a basis.
It can happen. You're going to be dead broke.
Yeah, no one's going to listen. I just want to say that I like what you're saying and I like what you're saying. Let's all come together. Fuck off, you stupid Scot. Go back to playing Kumbaya on the beach.
Is that what you do in Scotland? Do you have a beach in Scotland?
Nope. Yes, we do, but it's not very sunny.